For more than 2,000 years, China has done something almost no other civilization in human history has managed to achieve. Dynasties rose and fell, empires collapsed, invaders conquered the land, civil wars tore the country apart. And yet, again and again, China came back together as one civilization, speaking the same written language, governed by the same core ideas, and imagining itself as a single, continuous nation. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't because China avoided chaos. In fact, China experienced some of the bloodiest wars, rebellions, and political collapses the world has ever seen. The real question isn't why China never broke apart. The question is why it always reunited. To understand how China maintained unity for 2,000 years, we have to look deeper than emperors and armies. We have to look at ideas, systems, geography, culture, and a unique way of thinking about power and history itself. The first key lies in how China understood the idea of the state. From very early on, China did not see itself as just another kingdom among many. It saw itself as all under heaven, a single civilized world surrounded by the uncivilized. This concept, known as Tianxia, shaped Chinese political thinking for centuries. The ruler was not just a king of one region, he was the son of heaven, responsible for maintaining harmony across the entire world. This mattered because it created a powerful assumption. There should be one legitimate center of authority. Multiple competing states were seen as a sign of disorder, not a permanent condition. When China fractured, people didn't think, this is our new normal. They thought, this chaos must be resolved. In Europe, fragmentation became the default. Dozens of kingdoms coexisted for centuries, and no single power ever permanently reunited the continent. In China, fragmentation was temporary by definition. Unity was the natural state. Division was the problem to be fixed. That mindset alone explains a lot, but it wasn't enough. Ideas need systems to survive, and China built one of the most durable systems in human history. One of the most important tools of unity was bureaucracy. Long before most civilizations relied on professional administrators, China created a centralized bureaucratic state run by educated officials rather than hereditary nobles. These officials were selected not primarily by birth, but by knowledge, especially knowledge of Confucian texts, history, and moral philosophy. The system did two powerful things. First, it weakened local power. In many parts of the world, feudal lords ruled their regions like independent kingdoms. In China, officials were appointed by the central government and rotated between regions so they couldn't build local dynasties. Their loyalty was to the state, not to their hometown. Second, it created a shared elite culture. A scholar official in the south of China thought, wrote, and governed much like one in the north. They studied the same texts, wrote in the same classical language, and believed in the same political ideals. Even when dynasties changed, this bureaucratic class remained, quietly stitching the country back together. And this brings us to another crucial factor, the written language. Spoken Chinese has always been diverse. Dialects and languages varied dramatically from region to region, often to the point where people couldn't understand each other verbally. But the written language remained unified. A farmer in the south and an official in the north might speak differently, but they could read the same text, understand the same laws, and absorb the same moral lessons. Writing became the glue that held the civilization together. This is hard to overstate. When empires fall, languages usually fragment. In Europe, Latin splintered into French, Spanish, Italian, and more. In China, written Chinese stayed largely consistent for over 2 millennia, preserving continuity across generations and regions. Culture, too, played a massive role, especially Confucianism. Confucianism wasn't just a philosophy, it was a social operating system. It emphasized hierarchy, duty, respect for authority, and harmony over individual ambition. The ideal society was one where everyone knew their role and fulfilled it responsibly. Most importantly, Confucianism linked moral behavior directly to political legitimacy. A ruler who governed justly had the mandate of heaven. A ruler who became corrupt, cruel, or incompetent lost it. This belief did something brilliant. It made rebellion acceptable only as a way to restore order. People didn't revolt to destroy the system, they revolted to fix it. Even peasant uprisings claimed they were acting in the name of moral renewal, not permanent separation. So when a dynasty collapsed, the goal wasn't to create a new country. It was to establish a better dynasty over the same unified land. Geography also quietly worked in China's favor. China's heartland, the North China Plain, was ideal for centralized control. Large rivers like the Yellow River and the Yangtze connected vast regions, enabling trade, communication, and military movement. Unlike Europe's mountains and peninsulas, China's core regions naturally pulled toward unification rather than isolation. At the same time, natural barriers like deserts, mountains, and oceans limited sustained external competition. China faced invasions, yes, but rarely from rival civilizations with comparable bureaucratic systems and cultural influence. When conquerors like the Mongols or Manchus took over, they didn't replace Chinese civilization. They adopted it. Which leads to another overlooked secret of China's unity, its ability to absorb outsiders. Foreign rulers who conquered China quickly realized that ruling as foreigners didn't work. To govern effectively, they had to use Chinese administrators, follow Confucian norms, and rule in the name of Chinese tradition. Instead of China becoming Mongol or Manchu, the Mongols and Manchus became Chinese. Conquest didn't erase the system. It reinforced it. History itself also played a role. China developed one of the strongest traditions of historical record-keeping in the world. Every dynasty wrote the official history of the one before it. This created a continuous narrative, a long story of rise, decay, collapse, and renewal. People understood where they were in the cycle. Chaos wasn't the end of history, it was a phase. Unity would return because it always had. Even civil wars, some of which killed tens of millions, were framed as struggles over who should rule the same China, not whether China should exist at all. Finally, there's the emotional factor, identity. Over centuries, being Chinese became less about loyalty to a ruler and more about belonging to a civilization. Shared myths, shared texts, shared rituals, and shared memories created a deep sense of continuity. Dynasties changed names, borders shifted slightly, but the core identity endured. When China broke apart, reunification wasn't just politically desirable, it felt inevitable. So how did China maintain unity for 2,000 years? Not by avoiding collapse, but by designing a civilization that treated collapse as temporary. Not by suppressing change, but by absorbing it. Not by relying only on force, but by embedding unity into language, culture, bureaucracy, and belief. Empires elsewhere fell and disappeared. China fell, and then stood back up. Again, and again, and again. And that may be the most remarkable achievement of Chinese civilization of all.